the national anthem. How's everybody doing? This last Friday of July. Please come on up.
Do we have any joys or concerns that we want to raise for the group? That's always a good thing. We're all here and we're vertical. Yes. Okay. Mavis, is that? Sabrina, okay. Any others? Okay, let's pray. Almighty and ever-loving God, we give you praise for all the blessings you have poured upon us. Keep our families safe, strengthen our friendships, bless those we love, and take those who we have raised up to you today into your comforting embrace. Reveal the needs of your world to us so that we may help others in ways that bring you glory. Show all the nations of this world your way to peace. All these things we ask in your holy name. Amen. Let's pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, John. Isn't he a great singer? We are now going to introduce our fabulous guests that are here today. So if you have brought a guest, if you and your guest would please stand so we can make sure that they're introduced.
I'd like to introduce you all to Herb Hammond. Herb and I have volunteered together at the Bush Library on Saturdays for the last 4, 5, 6 years, somewhere around there. Herb is recently retired but still practicing. He was with Thompson and Knight for 27 years? 27. His specialty is intellectual property. If any of you have any of that, you might want to talk to Herb.
Hi, I have Josephine here as our guest. It is her second time at Rotary, and she runs her own nonprofit in the Philippines, and then also is in real estate. Yes, absolutely.
Hi, my name is Josephine Bryan, and I'm the founder of A Hunger-Free Philippines.
I'm really thrilled to introduce Ian Haslett, who's here today. He's already submitted his membership application. He's in telecom procurement.
Thanks, and here, thanks.
I wanted to have you see, this is Dr. Brandon Nutt. We'll be giving him a formal introduction shortly, but if you'll wait, you'll be seeing more of him shortly. Thank you, Dr. Nutt.
Hi, I'm happy to introduce Chris Huntley. He moved here from Missouri 2 weeks ago. His socks match. He's looking for a new Rotary Club. He was a member of a 100-member morning club in Missouri. So we're trying to convince him lunchtime is better.
Yes. Fantastic. Welcome.
Thank you, Richard. I'd like to introduce three people. First of all, Matthew Fenton. Matthew is joining DBG Advisors, so he's going to be working with me. I'd like to introduce also Steve Wingard. He is a Rotarian and a member of the Rockwall Boone Club, I think it is. And so glad to have him. And then also Tony. Tony Pample is really a friend of Steve, but I'd be happy to welcome him as a guest too. So let's give them a round of applause for
Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you so much. And Richard Stanford is going to introduce today's marketplace advertiser, Nolan Duck.
It's the Nolan Nutt Show, I guess. I don't know. I didn't realize I was up that quickly. Well, today's hub advertiser, and by the way, on your tables you have a hub, which is a little newsletter that we have every week that someone has to put together and someone has to pay for. Cindy puts it together, and the whole thing is a project that is, boy, pretty time intensive, and it costs something. So the hub advertisers are the ones that are basically paying for this communication piece, which has won awards in our district. But today's hub advertiser is Richard. Now, actually, it's the Highland Park United Methodist Church. It's one of United Methodist Church's flagship churches, and it adjoins and maintains a great relationship with SMU and the Perkins Divinity School, or School of Theology, I should say. With a membership of 15,000, Highland Park United Methodist Church uniquely offers multiple forms of worship, including traditional, contemporary, teaching, liturgical, and special services for those who have disabilities. The new Tolson Family Center and the George and Laura Bush Confirmation Area have expanded Highland Park Methodist Church's ministry to youth and to persons with disabilities. The church has 3 satellite congregations. Now that's kind of encouraging, isn't it? They're growing. Munger Church is in Old East Dallas, the Grove in North Dallas, and then Uptown Church, which is at the House of Blues on the edge of downtown Dallas. Highland Park sponsors ministries from Haiti to Costa Rica to areas in Dallas with the greatest needs. Highland Park United Methodist Church shares with Rotary Club of Park Cities a mission of serving the most vulnerable in the community. So let's give Richard a big round of applause for his contribution to the hub.
Thank you, Nolan. So we are now going to do Happy Bucks. So the third Friday each month, we are going to recognize 2 people, one person from Highland Park and one person from University Park that's done an outstanding job in the public service area. And then every quarter, we're going to introduce a Highland Park and University Park outstanding teacher. So your Happy Bucks go towards paying for their lunches. And so what you do is you share something that you're really happy about that you want to share with the club. This week, I am really happy to make sure that you check out the e-bulletin. I have a link for the article in the D magazine that highlights Chris McNeil. He has his home has been listed as one of the 10 most charming homes in Dallas. It's a really nice article and a really cute picture of him and his family, so please be sure to check that out. So my Happy Bucks are to tell you about Chris. And who else has Happy Bucks, something that they're really excited about? Tell us something that's going on with your work, your family, an anniversary, something going on with your friends. We look forward to hearing your happy news.
My happy bucks is I'm just overwhelmed with the quality and the enthusiasm of all the new people that you come into this club to visit. And it's really refreshing after a year of being shut in and having to look at each other. So I'm a happy man.
Thank you, Richard.
I want to give thanks that my father-in-law turned, former Rotarian, by the way, who's been here as a guest, turned 91 yesterday.
Wow, that's
Still running by
awesome.
himself and doing great, driving, all that stuff.
Where does he live?
He lives in Plano.
Fantastic. And there's Pat. Yes, Pat.
Yes, my son will be coming into town. He lives in New Braunfels, which seems close enough, but we rarely get to see him, and we're going to see him this weekend.
Outstanding. Thank you, Pat. Ruth.
I'm happy to announce that if you want to travel to England, there's no more quarantine. You can just land there and go out and visit and be a tourist.
That's fantastic. Are you going to be making a trip to London to see your daughter? Awesome. Congratulations. Thank you. And Miss Sarah OLIAI. So we're going to start hearing about the different teams that our club has to offer. We want to make sure that you know all the different volunteer opportunities that you have in our club. So this week we're highlighting the youth services area of our club, and Sarah OLIAI is the board of director under the youth services area. Sarah.
Thanks, Happy. So our youth services team consists of Service Above Self scholarships with John Whaley, who's the chair, and Alice Friedline, who's the vice chair. If you want to stand, if you're here. And the Youth Exchange with Mark McGuffin. Mark. Interact with Tracy Gomes. Rotaract with Ruth. How do you say your last name? Al-Halali. There you go, thank you. Ryla with Linda Tunnel. And Readers to Leaders with Rob Levy, who's the chair. And, you know, many of these deal with, obviously, kids, youth services. And so last year was a hard year for each of these teams because they weren't allowed in the schools, or it was just hard to fulfill their goals for each of these teams. But this year, they're all looking to reestablish those correspondences and try to figure out what that'll look like, plus as schools continue to evaluate what's going on with the Delta variant. But Tracy Gomes has said that if you're interested, please contact him. He wants club members who are interested in working with high school students at Hillcrest High School. And then also Readers to Leaders with Rob Levy is they've just finished a summer camp and they're working with DISD on a fall schedule, and they're considering virtual options. So if you're interested in participating in that, please contact Rob Levy. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And Marcia ZIDLE is going to tell us about the member profile.
Question. Have you seen this week's bulletin spotlighting C.C. Collier and Chris McNeil? Who has seen that? Raise their hand, okay? So, each week, 2 members of our club will be highlighted on the website and in the bulletin. So my question to all of you is, have you done your member profile? Or have you been procrastinating? I know I was procrastinating until last weekend when I felt a sense of guilt because Happy was emailing me that I filled it out, and it felt great to cross that task off my to-do list. So, if you haven't filled out your form, it's time to do it now so we can spotlight you. So fill out that form. Thank you.
If you'll look to the left, or I guess those of y'all over there, you'll look to the right. We have a great new Rotary banner. This is our red carpet banner. We want to make sure that you take your pictures in front of it every week, before the meeting, after the meeting, and use our hashtags. Post on your social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. Use our hashtags, post your pictures. We want to make sure that we share Rotary. Thank you. If you have a July birthday, if you'll come on up, we are going to have a picture with all the birthday people this month. Coming up, we're going to get a picture of all the July birthday people. Gina McDaniel, July 2nd. Karen Ferris, July 5th. Valerie Peelan, July 5th. William Taylor, July 6th. Siobhan Abraham, July 7th. Jerry Washam, July 9th. Leroy Howard, July 10th. Kristen Tesmer, July 10th. Zach Davis, July 12th. He and I share the same birthday. Hank Gaines, July 15th. Charlie Bond, July 17th. Sarah OLIAI, July 17th. Ed Fjorbak, July 19th. Bill Siegel, July 20th. Rod Pirtle, July 22nd. Barb Jeffries, July 24th. Chris McNeil, July 25th. Susan Donaville, July 29th. And let's get a picture. Others, yeah, happy birthday. Thank you. Thank you. Tomorrow is our Rangers game. I'm so excited. So it's tomorrow at 6:05. Be sure to come early so that you can get everything all situated. And but the game starts at 6:05. It's going to be a lot of fun. Make sure that you get your parking pass. Really looking forward to that. It's going to be fantastic. We have 30 people joining us, and then Eric is going to start telling us next week about the Frisco Rough Riders. If you'll go ahead and go on the website and sign up for our Frisco Rough Riders game. It's Fireworks Friday on August 20th, so that's going to be a lot of fun. So go ahead and put that on your calendar. You saw this week that we now need to, when you pay for a meal, you're going to get a ticket. You'll give it to the guy so you can get your food. We've had a few people go through the line without paying, and so we're hoping that this will take care of that. So be sure to buy a meal, so we're supporting Maggiano's, but also be sure to get that ticket. And the non-eaters can sit at the non-eating tables for $5 a person. Please keep in mind that we are still needing a new Rotary Club office. Jerry Washam is retiring. We've had this awesome office with Jerry Washam's office at Snyder Plaza. He's retiring, so we need a new fabulous office location for Laurie. We have a tight budget, so it needs to be very budget friendly. And we prefer it to be close to the Highland Park area so that, because a lot of us are going to the office on a regular basis to pick stuff up from Laurie, and so it needs to be convenient for Laurie to get to and convenient for us to pick up stuff. So let Laurie or I know if you have a great office location for us. That would be amazing. And now, without any further ado, I'm really thrilled to introduce my chiropractor. So I've had a lot of chiropractors in my life, and I can tell you that he's the best chiropractor that I've ever had. He's just really terrific. He's a highly skilled chiropractor, and he's literally 5 minutes away down on Northwest Highway, who helps patients throughout the greater DFW area. He's at the Wellness Institute of Dallas. Dr. Nutt and his team provide natural, non-surgical therapies for many different conditions, including arthritis, concussions, musculoskeletal issues, and more. He has a specialty in head issues in particular, like concussions. And Dr. Nutt primarily specializes in functional medicine and functional neurology. He offers chiropractic care, soft tissue therapy, nutritional counseling and supplementation, rehabilitation, gyrostem therapy, lifestyle coaching, and athletic injury recovery. Dr. Nutt was raised in Plano, Texas, has two children, and holds 2 bachelor's degrees, because one's not enough, in anatomy and health and wellness. Without any further ado, let's welcome Dr. Nutt.
All right, thanks everyone for inviting me today. We've got a little presentation here. Figured we'd kind of change it up and talk about sleep, because in my office, one of the major things that we have a problem with is seeing that anyone with any kind of chronic disease or any type of issue, whether it's pain or whether it's neurologically based or physiologically based, there's usually some kind of sleep issue involved as well. So we're going to talk about sleep and things that I typically see in the office and things that you can help out with without having to use any kind of medications or anything. Just easy things that you can do throughout your day, throughout the night, to try to make your sleep a little bit better. Where do I point the thing? It's not going to, oh, might help if it's on. How's that? Oh. Okay. Oh, we already talked about that. We don't need to do that. Okay. What are major reasons you lose sleep? And this is interactive, so please, anyone tell me what you think the major reasons people don't sleep well. Stress. Great answer. I think we've all experienced that. Anything else anyone could think of? What's that? Tired muscles. That works too. Anything else? Irregular schedule, pain. That's a good one. That's probably one of the major ones. I think we've all had that. Big 12 football. Big. What was Big 12 football? So those are obviously all really good answers, and we've all experienced that at one time or another. Maybe not. Can we go to the next one? Okay, so here's things that we talk about in our office. There's 3 major things that we talk about. Number 1 is blood sugar. Blood sugar plays a big role in this, and everyone knows diabetes, type 2 diabetes, type 1 diabetes, a little bit more rare. There's also something called 1.5, and then type 3 diabetes. Does anyone know what type 3 diabetes is? In the literature, it's called Alzheimer's disease. So I think if we understand that if there's a problem with blood sugar, you're probably going to have a problem with brain, and vice versa. If you have a problem with brain, you have a problem with blood sugar. We'll go over here. Circadian rhythm. So circadian rhythm, basically a 12-hour clock. The day is only is 24, but our circadian rhythm is only 12 hours. So we have a period where we should be awake and a period where we should be asleep, and completely different neurotransmitters, completely different hormones that should be kind of surging at times when we're sleeping. We're going to talk about cortisol. Jumping ahead of me here. You're good? Okay, and then the other one is neurotransmitter disorders, but we'll get into this. So let's go here. So no, I haven't slept well. Why do you ask? I think we've all had a morning where we wake up or just roll out of bed looking like this. But it's really important to ask yourself some really important questions here. Is it hard to fall asleep, or is it hard to stay asleep? Very different. A lot of people fall asleep super easy, and then 2-3 hours later, they're waking up seemingly for no reason, right? Your brain's going 100 miles an hour. You're sitting there rolling around in bed going, why the hell am I awake? Okay, I should be asleep. The next one, and obviously falling asleep, where we just sit and roll and roll and roll, takes 2-3 hours to fall asleep. How long does it, ask yourself right now, how long does it take me to fall asleep? If it's past 30 minutes, that's diagnosed as insomnia. Okay, that's how easy it is to be diagnosed insomnia, is if it's past 30 minutes. Okay, and I think we've all had nights where it's past 30 minutes. And then very importantly, do you have both, where it's hard to fall asleep and it's hard to stay asleep? And we're going to try to address some of these things today, just things you can do naturally. Okay, so first of all, blood sugar regulation. Okay, blood sugar regulation is when we eat, we have a blood sugar go up. Okay, and depending on what we eat, we all know, when it comes to blood sugar, if we all just ate those little chocolate truffles out there and jammed our face full of them, what happens to our blood sugar? Skyrockets, right? And then there's a hormone called insulin that gets released from your pancreas, and when that gets released, what does it do to your blood sugar? It pulls it back down, right? And that's kind of the natural progression of things. But if we have a blood sugar that's doing this all day, every day, where we eat and our blood sugar goes up, insulin brings it back down, now we get a little sleepy, right? If you ate too many of those things, you might be bobbing your head. I'll try to be a little bit more entertaining, so keeps it lively. Or if I see something and falling asleep, I'm going to call on you to answer a question. So when it comes to blood sugar, yep, that's fine. Okay. Hangry, right? I think that's a term that's becoming pretty popular. Hangry is when you're getting hungry and you get angry. I think we've all seen that Snickers commercial, becoming a diva, and it's some celebrity, they eat the Snickers and then they turn back into their normal person. And to be honest, at that time, a Snickers is probably the worst thing that you could eat, but it's good advertising. So do you get hangry, and how long does it take you to get hangry? If you're getting kind of the hangry, meaning like kind of irritable, You know, I think we all know someone who gets a little bit irritable, or someone who's getting kind of the anxious jitters, kind of the shakiness. You know, they might feel symptoms of anxiety or symptoms of you know, extreme drowsiness. Those types of things can get you feeling a little bit hangry. And then you get lightheaded, the dizzy when you go from sitting to standing. That's also a sign of potential blood sugar problems. There's a million different reasons that can happen, but when you go from sitting to standing, you get that, ooh, kind of what is that sensation? There is a lot of evidence that shows that blood sugar can play a role in that, as well as blood pressure and all those types of things. Okay, so the Hulk, are you hangry? Let's go to the next one here. Okay, so interactive, warning, interactive, it didn't quite, that E's supposed to be on the other end there, but low blood sugar regulation, okay? Ask yourself these questions. What time are you eating? Like, are you waking up and having breakfast right away? What time are you having lunch? What time are you having dinner? Okay, I think those are things that are really important. Is it okay if I use the other microphone and just kind of walk around? I feel like a caged animal up here. Awesome. Okay, so when it comes to these things, ask yourself some super simple questions. What time are you eating dinner? What is it? Because if it's high blood sugar or blood sugar regulation problems, you'll see issues with carbohydrates, right? Carbohydrates, everyone kind of knows that carbs are going to spike your blood sugar a little bit more the sugary stuff, but it's not just sugar, it can be grains, right? We can have different things that are like rice, quinoa, even those things are that we consider like the healthier grains, breads, pastas, as we're sitting here crushing the lasagna. Yeah, it was great. Are you having a bedtime snack? And what is it? What time are you having dinner? Because if you're having dinner, let's say you're an early dinner person, my dad eats dinner at like 5. I'm like finishing lunch and he's having dinner. And when he has dinner, he doesn't eat anything until breakfast the next morning, but he doesn't go to bed until 10:30, and he comes to me one time and he goes, man, I'm having a hard time staying asleep. What do you think's going on? I said, well, what time are you having dinner? What time are you having breakfast? Because if dinner's at 5 o'clock, and then you don't eat anything until 9 o'clock the next morning, you're going a really long time without eating. Would you be comfortable doing that from 9 in the morning till 5 o'clock in the afternoon? Definitely not, right? You'd probably get hangry. What time are you having breakfast? Now, who here actually eats breakfast? Okay, huge, huge. I know intermittent fasting is really big right now. Intermittent fasting is when you basically skip breakfast. But intermittent fasting is supposed to be intermittent. And in my office, one of the things I really notice is that it's not intermittent. People do it every day, okay? And then instead of having breakfast, they swing by and get that sugary latte or whatever thing from, you know, with whipped cream, basically a milkshake with caffeine. So would you feel comfortable going half of the time you go from dinner till breakfast during the day? So if you have, you know, dinner at 8 o'clock at night and you wake up and have breakfast at 8 o'clock in the morning, that's 12 hours. Would you feel comfortable going from 8 to 8 during the day? And the answer is typically no. People get a little shaky, a little angry. So one of the major things we want to do is decrease that time so we don't have blood sugar problems. Okay, let's go to the next one, please. Okay, how do you feel around 2 to 5 in the afternoon? Okay, if you're bobbing your head between 2 p.m. and 5 p.m., how are you sleeping between 2 in the morning and 5 in the morning? It usually is inverse. So if you're having a problem staying awake between 2 o'clock in the afternoon and 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you're typically kind of tossing and turning between 2 o'clock in the morning and 5 o'clock in the morning. Or that's when we wake up and have our best ideas, right? I think we've all experienced that. You don't write it down, hopefully you follow through on it. Are you using depressants to fall asleep? So are you waking up or going to bed needing, you know, a little nightcap, alcohol? Helps out with your GABA production, kind of brings the mood down. And then in the morning, are you waking up needing caffeine? Okay. So, and then what are you exercising? Okay, when you exercise is when you're going to increase some of the hormones that keeps us awake, right? So cortisol being one of them. Sorry, am I bothering everyone walking around? It just feels more natural. Okay, so if you're having a problem staying awake between 2 and 5 p.m. and staying asleep between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m., that's probably a circadian rhythm disorder. And there's actually, I just was talking to a patient about this today, there's actually some new research that shows going out and putting your bare feet on the ground and facing towards the sunrise, and the guy's name was Andrew Huberman, who did this research, and he showed that people's circadian rhythms naturally restore themselves without using any medications or even supplements or changing their diet or anything by just going out and standing and looking at the sunrise with their bare feet on the ground. And then at night, they put their bare feet on the ground again and watch the sun set, and that has a massive impact on your circadian rhythm, which makes sense when you think about it, right? Sun sets, when the sun is setting, the receptors in the back of our eyes stop getting activation from light, okay? We can go to the next one. Thank you, sir. When the sun is setting, you know, think of it like 10,000 years ago, we're all, you know, we don't have screens in front of our face. If we're sitting there and the sun is going down, that's the end of the day. But if we sit there with a screen in front of our face, the receptors in the back of our eyes keep getting activated. And when they keep getting activated, we keep serotonin as serotonin and never let it get converted into something called melatonin. Who takes melatonin to fall asleep? Right, so melatonin, and if you're taking anything over the counter for sleep, or 5-HTP, or valerian root, or passion flower extract, all those over-the-counter kind of like herbal things that help out with natural sleep cycles and trying to fall asleep, all those are trying to do is help conversion from serotonin to melatonin or increase your serotonin in the first place, which ends up helping melatonin production. But we'll never get that conversion. Our pineal gland deep in our brain will never convert serotonin to melatonin without the lack of light. Okay, there's receptors. As long as that bright light is flashing in my eyes, my brain will never think it's nighttime, and that will cause a change in my neurotransmitters. That'll change in a problem. That'll cause a problem in my circadian rhythm, because my circadian rhythm is going like, it's still light outside. But if you're in a room or if you have a screen, and that's why I put this guy sitting here with a computer in front of his face. You know, if it's 3 o'clock in the morning, you're staring at your cell phone, what are you telling your brain? It's daytime, right? So that's one of the worst things that we can do, is just stare at a computer screen or a cell phone or something like that when we're trying to sleep or trying to fall asleep, okay? What else we got here? So circadian rhythm disorders. You can see this is a little graph that shows you cortisol and melatonin. They're fairly inversely related. So 7 a.m., 8 p.m., you know, roughly when it's sunlight outside. And then between midnight, 3 a.m., you see your melatonin drastically increases towards that midnight. And that's when we're falling asleep. Okay, and you can see cortisol is nice and low. But what happens if our blood sugar starts to drop too low? Cortisol's main job is to make sure our blood sugar is never too low. Okay, everyone thinks cortisol, fight or flight response, which is involved in that. But the main job is to make sure our blood sugar never gets too low. Okay, what if you're stressed all day long? Stressing that cortisol response, stressing that fight or flight response. We burn out the cortisol that we make, and now we don't have cortisol at night. When you don't have cortisol, there's only one other hormone that can make sure your blood sugar stays up in the middle of the night. Okay, there's only one other hormone that can increase your blood sugar efficiently, and that's epinephrine, also known as adrenaline. Adrenaline spike. Anyone ever wake up 3 o'clock in the morning, you know, heart pounding, sweaty, clammy, maybe had a nightmare, maybe had a night terror? A lot of times it's because this epinephrine spike starts to go up, or epinephrine starts to go up, because cortisol is not there to lift your blood sugar back up. So epinephrine starts to lift it up, which is good. It means we don't fall into a hypoglycemic coma, which is pretty nice. But the problem is we start having a fight or flight reaction at 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning when our blood sugar starts to dip, and now, bing, we wake up. Brain's going 100 miles an hour. This is the tossing, turning, feeling like you're going, You know, brain's going 100 miles an hour, might have had that nightmare, and the reason that we have the nightmare is your brain has to rationalize this physiological change. And the problem is your psychology knows your deepest, darkest fears, so what does it do? It creates imagery in your brain about your deepest, darkest fears to rationalize this fight or flight reaction that we're having, okay? Not to get too deep into nightmares or anything, but it's an interesting kind of physiological thing where physiology is telling our psychology what to do, okay? Usually it's the other way around, okay? So, if you are sleepy during the day, wide awake at night, needing stimulants to wake up, needing depressants to fall asleep, you might have a circadian rhythm disorder. Okay. Jeff Foxworthy, great. Can we go to the next one, please? Thank you. So, not trying to get too sciencey here, but neurotransmitter dysfunction, this is only for, and usually the stars aren't there quite yet, but that's okay. So, there's protein consumption. This is only how we make serotonin, okay, one of the many neurotransmitters, okay? And when we make serotonin during, really between 3 and 5 a.m. is when we make the vast majority of our serotonin for that next day, okay? So if you're not sleeping between 3 and 5 a.m., guess what happens? You don't make that neurotransmitter. But to make this neurotransmitter serotonin, we have to have protein consumption. Okay, in protein consumption, we have to get something called tryptophan. This is like, you know, everyone says Thanksgiving, you eat that turkey has all that tryptophan, and that makes us sleepy. It has nothing to do with the 4,000 calories we just ate. But when you have protein consumption, you get that tryptophan, goes into our blood, there's a couple other amino acids in there, and we break down that protein, and we break down those branched chain amino acids, we absorb those into our muscles, so we can get nice and big and strong, so we can repair tissues and things like that. And now we have this elevated amount of tryptophan, okay? Now the problem is if you don't eat protein, if you don't eat tryptophan, so it's kind of like if I told you to make a 10-pound cake, but only gave you 2 pounds of flour. Would we be able to make a 10-pound cake? No, we'd have to have way more ingredients. So making sure we eat in our diet the ingredients it takes to have a human functional brain and body. So diet and food obviously plays a big role. Gut health, digestive enzymes. If you don't break down the food you eat, okay, and I'm sorry we're at lunch, but I'm going to talk about poop, okay? If you look down and your poop is floating, chances are you're not digesting fats, okay? If you look down and your poop is not formed, chances are you're not really breaking down anything. Okay, so that's something that you want to take a look at as well. Insulin response. So blood sugar. If your blood sugar is fluctuating all the time, you're going to have a hard time bringing in these proteins. Okay, and to get protein into your brain, this tryptophan, the raw ingredient to make serotonin and melatonin, you have to have a proper insulin response. Guess what happens to diabetics? Insulin response is inappropriate. Too much insulin release. Too much insulin release means we can't bring tryptophan across the blood-brain barrier. And when we don't get tryptophan across the blood-brain barrier, we don't make serotonin, which leads to melatonin problems. Next, we have, so once we get that blood tryptophan in through our blood-brain barrier, we have a couple of steps that we have to go. Tryptophan to 5-HTP, 5-HTP over to serotonin, serotonin over to melatonin. But the problem is, if you're deficient in B vitamins, okay, B12, B6, B9, iron, those are the major players that allow us to make tryptophan into 5-HTP. So if you're iron deficient anemia, not good. Can't make serotonin very efficiently. If you're B12 deficient, anyone get B12 shots? Okay, if it gives you energy when you get a B12 shot, it probably means you're B12 deficient. If you get a B12 shot and it doesn't give you energy, it probably means you don't have a B12 deficiency. Okay, B12 should not, you should be able to take B12 before bedtime and not feel energized. Okay. Okay, so you do this fancy thing, you turn the lights off, you make melatonin, everything is great. Okay, but if you have inflammation problems, that limits the ability to convert tryptophan bring tryptophan through the blood-brain barrier and convert it to serotonin and then convert it into melatonin further. We already talked about B vitamins. Magnesium is another one. Magnesium, the most efficient nutrient in the American population. Okay, there's a couple different kinds. Magnesium L3, and it actually crosses the blood-brain barrier most efficiently. But we can talk about that later. Methyl donors, those are your B vitamins again. We can go to the next one. So, and that's just serotonin. Okay, serotonin and melatonin. We didn't talk about dopamine, we didn't talk about glutamate, GABA, norepinephrine, epinephrine, acetylcholine, or we talked a little bit about cortisol. So when it comes down to it, it's super complicated, right? We just need to simplify it. So number one, have good blood sugar. If your blood sugar is fluctuating, one of the easiest things to do is just snack more often, right? Instead of having breakfast, lunch, and dinner, maybe add a little snack in there and a smaller breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So instead of doing this big roller coaster ride, we're just doing little bumps, okay? A little bit, you know, blood sugar gets a little low, a little bit of snack. A little bit lower, another little snack, a little snack, and just kind of keep it up all day long. We can go to the next one, please. So let's kind of tie it together. If you have cortisol problems, that throws off all your neurotransmitters. Next one, please. If you have neurotransmitter problems, guess what? That throws off your cortisol. Okay? If you have problems with blood sugar, that throws off your cortisol. If you have problems with blood sugar, it throws off your neurotransmitters. So you end up having this cycle of, oh my gosh, how do we fix this, right? And the way that you fix this is just through little steps every day. Okay? Snack a little bit, make sure your blood sugar is not riding up and down. Try to avoid things that are going to spike cortisol. Stress, right? Everyone just avoid stress. Real easy, right? Super easy. But here's some other things. Caffeine. We should not be, crushing coffee all day, every day. And if you are, just to keep your brain functioning, that means there's probably some deficiency. That means there's probably something going on that you want to get to the bottom of, because those deficiencies don't just sleep problems, but they cause other neurological problems. They can be involved with your pain perception, because pain is just a perception. You can have issues with psychiatric disorders. People would call them, anxiety, nervousness, depression, those types of things. A bad night of sleep, the problem with a bad night of sleep is what can it possibly turn into? Another bad night of sleep. If you wake up and go, wow, that was a bad night of sleep, and then you crush a giant coffee, and that coffee that day is going to turn around and cause problems at the next night. And then you do it again, and then again, and then again. And we all know what happens if you have several days of bad sleep in a row. You're probably not the nicest person in the world. And it's not your fault. It's, potentially something that we can do from a diet, nutrition, supplementation perspective to help make some changes. Next one, please. So, take-home message. There's not usually one problem or one solution. It's multifactorial. The one problem, one solution doesn't necessarily work with most sleep issues. And when it comes to the sleep medications, I think there's issues with those as well. I had one patient tell me that they went to McDonald's, drove through the drive-through at about 4 a.m., doesn't remember it, had 3 cheeseburgers. I had another patient, ate half of a wedding cake. A whole half of a whole wedding cake, and the wedding hadn't happened yet. So when it comes to exercise, one of the things I tell people is make sure you exercise. Like if you're having problems waking up, exercise at the time that you have your sleep issues. So if you're having a hard time waking up in the morning, exercise in the morning. If you're having a hard time staying awake between 2 and 5 p.m., exercise at that time. If you're having a hard time, falling asleep, make sure you're not exercising at night. Okay, things that are going to increase your cortisol, things that are going to increase your fight or flight hormones. Try to avoid those things. And same thing with anything that's going to cause stress, right? News, how to catch a killer. This is like my office manager. She's like, I can't fall asleep. and she's listening to a podcast about like literally like murderers in her neighborhood. Like what are you doing? Controlling stress obviously makes a huge difference. And what type of exercise you do can be really important as well. So instead of doing the typical get on the treadmill or get on the elliptical for 30 minutes and just go at a continuous pace, one of the things I find most successful is doing something called high intensity interval training, okay? Whereas you're basically reteaching your brain how to be in fight or flight mode and how to be in rest and digest mode. Okay, so this is a big part of my practice, is helping people get out of the stress mode and more into a rest, digest, and heal mode. Sympathetic versus, sympathetic is fight or flight, parasympathetic being more your rest, digest, and heal mode. Okay, that's what mode we need to be pushing towards when we're falling asleep and to stay asleep. So high intensity interval training, one of the things that it does is when you go as hard as you can for 30 seconds, 45 seconds, a minute, however long it takes to get out of breath, okay, it teaches your brain to be in fight or flight mode. And then when you stop and hold a yoga pose or just walk or try to get into a quick meditative state, just hold and breathe and control your breathing, bringing your body back down to a rest and digest mode, we can begin to reteach how to be fight or flight and how to be rest and digest, as opposed to just being stuck in fight or flight all the time. This is one of the things that we do at my office, where we put a pulse ox on someone's finger. Okay, the average person should have and obviously everyone's a little bit different, but an ideal oxygen saturation is 98, 99%. Okay, shouldn't really drop too much lower. And this is why as we age or as we have inflammatory issues, you can see oxygen saturation start to drop. And this is why the vast majority of strokes and heart attacks happen early in the morning, usually between 4 and 6 a.m. is when the vast majority of strokes and cardiovascular events happen, because our oxygen saturation is actually dropping at that time. Okay, the average person's oxygen saturation drops 6 to 10% when they're in their deepest sleep. So if your oxygen saturation isn't 99, you're looking at like 91, okay, somewhere around that range. If your oxygen saturation during the day is 92, you're looking way low into the 80s. We know that you go to the hospital when your oxygen saturation typically drops in below the 90s, right? As soon as you hit that 80s, that's not so good. So we want to make sure that oxygen saturation, our brain works on 3 basic mechanisms. If we have to have glucose, we have to have a fuel source, we have to have oxygen, just like a race car engine, right? And then we have to have stimulation. And I always tell people, everyone has a race car engine of a brain, but does your race car engine have any fuel? Because if it doesn't have fuel, it's a big paperweight, right? If your race car engine is on the moon and there's no oxygen, you can't have explosion and boom, no engine, right? So we have to have oxygenation, we have to have fuel, and then we have to have activation. Okay, everyone thinks, ooh, activation, go do some Sudoku. But actually, the vast majority of our brain functions on movement. Okay, so if we get up and then go sit behind a computer and do Zoom for 12 hours and then go to bed, is there much activation there? Not too much movement, right? The vast majority of our brain, about 90% of the neurons are based on movement, not necessarily even thought. Okay, the thought is like really just the very front of our brain, really anterior frontal lobe. But the vast majority is for vision and movement. And if all you're doing is sitting watching a computer screen or sitting in a chair, we're not getting much activation. So we want to really stimulate our brain through movement, make sure we're giving it the right nutrients, and make sure that we're breathing to have good brain function. Because at the end of the day, sleep affects brain more than anything. Right? I think we can all recognize that and understand that. If you don't sleep well, it's not that your arm dies. It's that your brain is sitting there going, man, brain fog, not feeling so good. Okay, so what can we do today to make things better? Okay, have a bedtime snack, typically a healthy fat. Carbohydrate, I always tell people, carbohydrate is like jet fuel, right? Light jet fuel, big explosion, it's all gone. Fat is like a candle, it's literally a candle. Candle is made out of wax, which is essentially a kind of fat. You light that candle and it starts to burn, and it burns all night long, a nice smooth energy, consistent. And that's why when we eat a Snickers or something like that, blood sugar spikes, we get lots of energy, and then what happens? Crash, right? Fat is very different. Our brain loves to use ketones as fuel as well. And if anyone knows how to get into ketosis, you avoid carbohydrate and get lots and lots of fats to increase ketone bodies, and so goes the process of fueling your brain and getting rid of the brain fog and getting rid of the brain energy problems. But healthy fat right before bedtime acts as like a candle of energy to keep you sleeping longer. Okay, instead of having carbohydrate, this is where we make big mistakes, is like bedtime, I'm gonna have that bowl of ice cream, right? Sugar, crash, wake up, okay? So there's these things called fat bombs, which sounds gross, but it's basically just coconut oil. I usually use cashew butter because it tastes better. Other than peanut butter, I like cashew butter more. And then just organic cocoa powder. Mix it up together, like literally a third, a third, a third. Mix it up together. Tastes like a Reese's, but is healthy, okay? So a few bites of chicken, avocado, handful of cashews, walnuts, anything, if it looks like a brain, it's probably good for your brain. Walnuts, cashews, pecans. First thing in the morning, do 1 minute of something to get your body awake. Just kind of, hey, body, time to be awake. Do some sit-ups, some push-ups, some body weight squat. Just go off the edge of the bed and bounce off the edge of the bed a few times. Get the big muscles in your body going so you wake up, okay? Have a healthy breakfast, fat or protein again. Kind of wakes the brain up. Snack throughout the day. I always tell people 2 to 3 hours. That might be a little short, but every 2 to 3 hours, I think that's a pretty healthy idea of keeping your blood sugar nice and regulated. Let's go to the next one, please. I think that might be it. Okay. Try to work out at lunchtime. If not capable, just repeat what you did. Just 1 minute. I think even in these, our professional clothes, we could all do 1 minute of lunges or 1 minute of squats or 1 minute of wall push-ups or something like that. Just get the blood pumping. Turn the screens off when the sun goes down. Leave work at work. Easier said than done. Meditate, pray, yoga, stretch, anything that connects the brain and the body. Try a hot herbal tea, lemon water. The sleepy time teas, like you can get at Whole Foods or Kroger or whatever, they usually do pretty good. They have valerian root, passion flower extract. You got to make sure, talk to your doctors, make sure there's nothing in it that's going to cause any problems, especially if you're on blood thinners or statins or those types of things. And then just get into a routine. If you're waking up at 5 o'clock one morning and 10 o'clock another morning, and it's just going bouncing, 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 your brain's never going to be able to get into that circadian rhythm, that 12-hour cycle. Okay. Next one, stop guessing if you're deficient in something and just get tested. It's super easy. Blood test, pee test, stool test, whatever it is, just find out. Do you have a deficiency in something? Because it could be as simple as just increasing a little bit of this or increasing a little bit of that to make a big change. Okay? There's all the time, we use a magnesium powder, and I could tell you, it knocks my kids out. No, just kidding. But if you just know what you're deficient in, it can make all the difference. All the time, people use one supplement to make a huge difference in their life. We don't need to talk about that stuff. Let's go to the next one. I think that's it. Going over time here. Okay, there's my information, office email, my personal email, drbradnutt@gmail.com. We're the Wellness Institute of Dallas. We're just right down the road in Preston Tower. We take up about the first quarter of the building on the right side. So walk through the front sliding glass doors. We're right there on the right side. What's up?
Question, if you do take a melatonin tablet at night before bed, does that interfere with your body and make you feel hurt?
I'm glad you asked that because at certain doses it can. The research shows that anything over 5 milligrams per night for about 2 weeks will start to offset your natural production of melatonin. Think of it as like Arnold Schwarzenegger obviously did steroids, right? He openly talks about it. And he took steroids for so long that his body started saying, you know what, we're not going to make testosterone anymore. So guess what he has to do now? He has to take testosterone hormone replacement. your brain is going to work very similar. So if you're messing up the feedback loop of, okay, we're getting melatonin from somewhere, and your brain's like, well, I guess we don't need to make it. If you do it for 2 weeks straight of over 5 milligrams of melatonin, the research shows that you start decreasing your natural production of melatonin. So I always tell people, if you're going to do it only on nights that you're like, okay, I really need a good night's sleep because I got something important to do tomorrow, and don't do it for more than 3 days in a row.
One last question. Eric.
Yes, sir.
I sleep with lock hours with that big wrong. Can you speak to how temperature affects, body temperature affects how you sleep?
Someone asked me when we were going through the line about pillows, and I think this is such that pillows, temperature, sheets, whatever, it's such a personal thing, but I do believe the research, I personally believe that colder is better. There is some research that kind of talks about hibernation states, and like as adults, we're not supposed to have brown fat anymore. Brown fat is what kind of keeps a bear alive while they're hibernating. And there's actually some research that shows that that when you're in a colder weather, it will help with sleep and falling asleep and getting deeper restful sleep. So if you want to follow what research says, colder the better, about 66, 65 degrees. And if you want to follow what's good for you, then follow what's good for you. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Stay here. We're gonna get it. Isn't he awesome? Yeah. Feel free to ask him some additional questions after this. I'm sorry we have to cut him off. He's really entertaining, so feel free to catch him afterwards, and he'll be sure to answer your questions. Dr. Nutt, a book is being placed in your honor at McShann Elementary.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Honor.
Daniel Drabinski is going to provide our membership minute.
All right, so not sure if we've really established what this is, but I was asked to speak just very briefly for about a minute about membership. I had the pleasure of serving as your director of membership over the last 2 years. I've handed that gavel over to Valerie. He's doing a fantastic job, but you know, in that 2-year period, I had some incredible opportunities to meet so many new members, so many new prospects. This club is really built on everybody here, and if you think back to the history of Rotary and what Rotary was founded on, it was really a group of community leaders, business people who wanted to give back to their community and saw that the synergies they could create by working together were so much greater than what they could do on their own. So that's really representing this group. I look at all these incredible, unique individuals and how they've all come together. So incredibly excited about the 21, 22 new members we brought on this past year. We already have an incredible slate of new prospective members coming on now. We'd ask each of you your homework assignment for this week. Think about your own networks, think about your churches, your schools, other parents, other people you associate. Nominate 1 or 2 new people, go to the website, fill out the nominating form, and we will just keep writing them through, bringing them out. Really, this club is built by you guys, and we need more of you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. And if you're a guest, we sincerely hope that you decide to join. So you see the fabulous flowers that are at your table? So they were donated by Garden Gate. You know, they had the best float, and they weren't able to attend last week, but they wanted to provide these flowers in their stead. So they're really beautiful. We would love for you to take them. Just provide $10. They're $10 per flower arrangement, and that'll go to Happy Bucks. And we would love for you for all of the flower arrangements to be taken. They're $10 each, and we look forward to having Junior back. So we have the fabulous red carpet banner over there. We want to make sure that you take a picture before you leave today. We'd love to have a couple people become experts at bringing it up and taking it down. And so if that's something, it's not complicated, it's A, B, B, C, C. So if you're interested in helping us make sure that it's up every week and taking it down, let us know. We'd love for you to help us with that. If you'll now rise, Mark McGuffin is going to lead the four-way test. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Next week's meeting is on the Boy Scouts. We're going to have a fantastic program. Please join us. Look forward to seeing you next week. You can leave it on the table.